I'm so happy to see everyone jumping on. So please feel free to throw in the chat a win that you're celebrating from this week. And I want to keep on rocking on because I'd love to do some work really quick that's going to be helpful for you. I think one of my fellow leaders is the one that said this to me a couple years ago, and I think it was Becky, and she said, when you're looking at the actions that you're taking, you have to make sure they align with what you want and what results and you want to achieve. So for example, if you want to lose something like 100 pounds, like what Amber and I have evicted, that is not something that you're going to achieve by kind of sort of following a meal plan and walking. That's something that's going to take a little more concerted effort. Or if you want to get six-pack abs, or you want to get a specific tone, there are going to need to be weights or something involved in the workout program you choose. And so to make sure that you are aligning what you want to what you're actually doing. And so that's one thing I love, how we honestly have the solution for anything. Like anything that you want to achieve with your health and nutrition, you can follow the plan that is set in BOD for you. Now, I said in my post, if you read my post, I said I have 2 tools that will help you that you can't find in BOD. And part of that is because it comes from you. So I have to be honest. If this journey that I've been on come 5 years next September, this September 26th at 11:57 p.m., I signed up and said yes. If I would have started that 5-year journey and had it only been about losing the weight, I would have quit it so many times. There's so many times that the scale doesn't move or things don't change the way I think it should, and I would have just quit so many times. But what I really made my journey about was, how am I feeling? How am I interacting with my son? And how so much more. And so what I want to do today is, if you have that piece of paper, I wanted you to break down on the piece of paper these 2 tools that we're going to talk about, and that is the telescope and the microscope, and how they can help you on your health journey. So the telescope, we want to look at that as being your big picture. This is your long term. How do you want to feel? Is there a specific clothing size that you want to be in? Is there a specific event that you want to be able to complete? Are you looking to overcome a health challenge? What is it? Big long-term vision that is going to keep you focusing forward. And then the microscope comes into play, or a magnifying glass, by zooming your focus. Because if we spend all our time thinking about that daunting goal a year, 2, 3 years from now, whatever it is that we're working on, if we spend all our time focusing that, we're going to miss those seemingly small things in our daily life that could get us there. And just in the same way that using the microscope to kind of hone in on, what is it, the action that I need? What is it that I'm missing? If we focus only on the very small, minute focus of today, we could really get hung up and focused in those catches. Like, we could really get hung up on that week that the scale doesn't move. We could really get frustrated if we don't have a good workout or we miss our workout. And so having both of them paired together, so I just kind of, like my little paper, I split my paper in 2. I drew a microscope on the right and a telescope on the left. And so we're going to kind of I'd love for you to unmute and throw some of those long-term visions that you want, but then also make it very specific to you and write it on your side. Like, how do you want to feel? How will you, I like to even think of it as, how will you walk into a room? How will you walk into the office? How will you show up for a parent-teacher conference? How will you walk through the kitchen? How will you walk into the bedroom with your significant other? Like, what is that long-term vision that you want for your life and for how you want to feel in your body? And there's no limits here. You can, of course, add a number goal if it's in there, but like I said, that's not going to be the only thing we're looking at. We're not only looking at a number, because the scale itself, like, I think one thing that To Be Mindset really helped me understand is the scale is not a fat measuring tool. I can't tell you how many times in my life I hated the scale because I looked at that number as it was 100% fat. And the truth is that scale is bones and muscle and water and blood. And yes, there is fat, but our bodies need fat too. And so that tool by itself, just like Alana teaches, that tool by itself is not the measurement of your success and is not the measurement of everything. It's one tool to be used in combination with your tracking, with your data, and with using your program. So it's something that if we really fill this telescoping side, we can really get that long-term vision. So a long-term vision could be a wedding, a certain thing that you want to show up at in a wedding if the wedding's a couple years away. If the wedding is this coming fall, or you're looking at New Year's Eve, that's more of a short-term goal. Because if we are just going to set our vision on, I'm going to get to the wedding day, what happens when the wedding's over? If we don't have a longer term vision of the energy and the health that we want for our life, we're going to go right back to where we were. And if you're anything like I was in my past, I would gain back anything I lost and add more, right? So we want to have that yin and yang of long-term vision, how we want to feel and look and show up in our lives and live, as well as that short-term one. So does anybody want to unmute and throw out some of their big picture, like long-term, like what do you imagine yourself doing?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So how would you also handle this when your long-term goal is more to maintain or just keep toning up, but like when you're looking 5 years ahead, you're not that far away? And I'm asking for like, not just myself, but also like, for other people that are watching, because I've lost that bigger chunk. And so now how would you like navigate through like that vision for maintenance mode?
So yeah, and maintenance mode, I think, I don't know Autumn's side, but Alana still talks about checking in on those measurement points at least every month or so that you can still see that. So can you tell me a little more about how maintenance mode feels to you? Like, what is it that you love about this weight and energy and health and size that you're at right now? What are you enjoying benefit wise?
And I will say, I'm just going to put in a little plug for tracking because I've been tracking this week. I have been in maintenance mode this whole summer long and done really, really freaking well with that. But the compound effect of slacking off in maintenance mode is, an actual 7 vanity pounds that you didn't like realize till the end of summer. So like I'm going back to square one, and I have the tools and resources to make that happen. And some of it I know is muscle that I'm gaining from 645 because I'm also lifting heavy. But yeah, I love that. Like writing down how you're feeling in that maintenance mode. What do you love? How do you want to stay there? But yeah, when you slack at the tracking, then you'll find that maintenance mode is a little further away, maybe a couple weeks later, a couple months later than it was.
And you can pick a milestone, and I don't want to like pull any negative strings there, but I know you and I both have younger children. So how does Elizabeth want to feel showing up at high school graduation? How does Elizabeth want to feel showing up at college or at moving into campus day? Do you want to be able to carry the boxes up the flights of stairs, or do you want to stay home because you couldn't help? Like think about, and some of that can, I don't say it lightly, that it can be a hard to think about, but we want to think about the good things and how we want to feel, so we have those points to turn to. That's so much more than a number on the scale, especially when the number doesn't necessarily move every day or every month. Something that I really love in the To Be Mindset videos, and Alana really speaks to my mindset, so I go there a lot. But I also hope that you see that I'm not sharing anything that you can't learn or know as well, because it is coming from the tools. But I really love how she speaks to the fact that you are really only in maintenance mode if you're doing all the choices and all the tracking. You're doing absolutely everything according to plan and nothing changes. And by nothing, it's not just the scale. Like it's your physical, it's everything. So I really love how she brings that in. So I'd love to hear if anybody's willing to unmute and share what some of their long-term vision looks like for themselves.
So this is one that I'm still kind of working and tweaking because Jen, you already kind of alluded in the beginning. One of my big goals was to get healthy, and I didn't have a weight goal in mind for that, but I have evicted over 100 pounds in the last 3 years. And that, like, it blew my mind because I didn't consider it a possibility in the time frame. And it wasn't something that I was reaching for because I have an unhealthy history with the scale and with numbers and with those things. So my mindset has always gone to, how do I want to feel? How do I want to look? How do I want, like, what do I want to be capable of? So everything you shared is like right to my heartstrings, and I appreciate that. But now I am like with Elizabeth, I'm trying to refigure or reconfigure what my next thing or focus is. And right now, my microscope is that I have a mini triathlon coming up in about a month, and I want to be able to do that and feel really good when I finish it, because I know I'm going to finish it, but I want to finish it with energy and with joy and with happiness. So that's like my micro view, because that is 1 month away.
I absolutely, I love that. So for me is my family's really active. Like my son's 10, my husband, we met with him riding his bike and running daily. And we will often have a Saturday or a Sunday that we go 9 miles trail hiking up in the like 2000 elevation. So being able to maintain the longevity and the fitness to keep moving like that, to that my 50 and 60-year-old self can still go get on the mountain. I love adventure races. I love Spartans, and I love doing 5Ks and having fun with my friends. So I want to maintain a fitness level and an energy that I can say yes to races and I can get out there. And I want to maintain health and a healthy relationship with food and emotions, that I'm not having to depend on medicine in the future. I have depended on medicine in the past, and thankfully with my lifestyle changes, I have not used medicine in the last 4.5 years. So I'm thankful for that. However, I know I do need to keep working forward so that I don't go back to where I was. So I need to keep focused forward towards those health. I think we've got just about 5 or 10 minutes left. So I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to assume, because I see pens writing and have some silence, I'm going to assume that you've got some of those big vision pieces ready. And now this is where we take the microscope and we're going to look at what is something that we can focus on. I like to focus on one thing at a time so you don't feel like you have to uproot your whole life. However, if you've been here for a while and you've already locked in your water, like I have to call you out, Sherry, because it was so fun talking to you before everybody got on. And she shared how she's like, I said, what went well this week? And she talked about her workouts. And I was like, oh, how about your water and a shake? She's like, oh yeah, I had that. Like she's been doing so steady with her water and her shakes that she wasn't even worried about that anymore. So you get to a point where you're able to move forward, and these other things that were hard at first are now second nature, and you get to keep going. So in our focus, when you look at what you're doing on a daily basis, are you hitting snooze and sleeping in? Are you scrolling and missing your workout because you're scrolling through social media, and all of a sudden work comes and you didn't get to work out? Do you have an opportunity to work on dinner and done, where you need to cut out some nighttime snacking? Do you need to go a little harder on your workouts? Are you realizing that you really want cut abs or really toned body, and you've been using the same weights for 3 years? So things to look at with that microscope, and be honest with yourself. It's something that I really come back to the tracker again, because anything you leave off the tracker, and if you don't track on those hard days or bad days, that it's just a day. But if you don't have that data, you're missing the opportunity to what you can change. So is there anybody, like I know Amber shared hers, is there anything that anybody's identified or would like help breaking down what would be a Zoom focused action to get towards something they want?
Can I mention, if you can't think of what it is, then obviously like reach out to Jen or your coach later. But just consistency. Like I'm thinking now, 10 years from now at my kids graduate, one of the reasons why Mark and I started this and we decided to stick to it is because once we started living more healthy, we went ziplining one time and our kids were so young and they had to be like 14 or 15, I forget what it was, to zip line. And so we decided that we were going to continue. That was our decision moment, that this was not going to be, oh, we're just doing this to get fit for summer or to, fit back in our wedding attire or whatever. Like we were going to continue it because we have another 8 years before our kid would be that old and we want to get on the zip lines with them. And so that doesn't just equal like an amount on the scale. And it just comes down to consistency and always pushing myself and leaning in. So if you don't have something yet, just write down consistency and then maybe like dive into it with your coach a little bit more later.
And I would say like some of what you can do on a daily basis is setting an alarm to be here on this call. Like you're here on this call right now. If you're catching the recording, this is something that a Zoom focus could be setting a reminder so that every week you can bring to us what went well, where you're struggling, and refocus and get forward again to keep yourself moving forward. For me, that's something I think it's been a huge part of my secret sauce the last 5 years is engaging in my private group. And I call it leaning in when I talk about it to others or when I talk about it in my group. But for me, leaning in is engaging because I personally, if I go silent and I withdraw, I'm struggling. And so I know if I hold myself accountable, which that's the tricky thing about accountability. We think accountability is someone managing and telling us what to do, but accountability is actually us showing up to someone or something that we said we would do and holding that consistency. So maybe it's working towards 5 minutes a day in the private group that you're a part of, or maybe it's working towards 5 minutes a day of your nutrition program, or getting that tracker out, getting that water started, picking that task that you haven't been doing. Because my favorite equation lately is action plus time will equal results. And that's always action brings motivation. It brings inspiration. I can't tell you how many times I take that first step forward and you keep going. So I just want to encourage you before we pop off, because we're at the end here, any other final questions or shares? Well, wonderful. Well, I would love, I'm going to, everybody who is here, I'm going to share that screenshot I shared. I would love if you take that to your private group and share that screenshot and then maybe brainstorm with your private group, like what is going to be your focus for this week? Where can you both dream about how great it's going to feel a year, 2, 3, 10 from now, but then also bring out that microscope and say, okay, where do I need to be honest? Where do I need to stop hitting Zoom or start showing up? And let's do this together. So wonderful. Thank you so much for popping on. I can't wait to see how you pick it apart and get it going this week.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.